Okay, so on to the second part of this little walkthrough or large walkthrough. It takes a little while to get through all this stuff. Something you might want to review, and I want you to try all these things so when we're working on designs, you aren't struggling too terribly much. One thing I didn't point out last time is there's no save button or anything. As you're working, it always saves. And when you when you open tinkercad.com, unless it's logged you out, it should always just take you to your dashboard, and whatever you last worked on will be shown. Don't worry if the thumbnail doesn't show up at first. Just click Tinker This, and it will take you right back to what you were working on. So whatever you're working on, it's always saving in the background automatically. Give them good names so that you know what they're called. All right. I wanted to show you a few other, or a bunch of other stuff here. So one is if I can't really make you see this, but if I click on my object to select it and I use the up arrow on my keyboard, it will move it up away from me. The left arrow moves it left and right, arrow moves it right, and the down arrow moves it towards me. So up and down don't move it up and down. If you hold the control key and click the up arrow, it will move it up. And if you click the control key and click the down arrow, it will move it down. All right, so that's the arrow, using your arrow cursors to move around. You'll also notice that there are several sets of little double-headed arrows. So again, we're always on, I'm moving around by using my right click because that's how I always do it, but you can always use your cube. I just don't really love the cube. You will need to orbit like that a lot because sometimes you just don't see the control that you need because it's hidden from view. So get used to it. This one will move the object. This one will move the object around the protractor like that. You'll notice when I'm inside the little protractor, it moves in 22.5-degree increments. So that's 1/4 of 90 degrees or half of 45 degrees, sort of a sensible amount that you're usually wanting to move. But if you want to be more precise, if you take your mouse outside of the protractor, it will move in 1-degree increments. And as always, very often you will be typing in parameters. That's what they're called. Whenever you're typing in anything in design work, it's called a parameter, okay? And if I click on this set of double-headed arrows, it will move it in that plane. And if I set this little set of double-headed arrows, it will move it in that plane. And I believe what you have to do in Tinkercad, no, once I click on it and the protractor shows, if I just type in 45, it will move it 45 degrees. I'm just hitting undo and undoing all of that. So that's how you rotate. Okay, so I promised I would show you how radius and fillets work. I told you don't use length, width, and height to change length, width, and height. Use the white squares, either the corners or the top square. Use this guy to the top hat. There's probably a real word for that, the little clown hat to move it up and down. But this guy is actually something you do use sometimes. The radius will take the sharp corner off of your shape. So most things that manufacture don't have sharp corners. Tables, right? Almost your computer, everything has a radius to it because sharp corners hurt. Generally, and they're actually also harder to produce because they're so perfectly precise. So in radius is a little easier to produce too, just a little aside there. So as you move this, it will put a radius in millimeters on your object. So typically a 1 or 2 millimeter radius will just put a nice little soften the edge of your thing. If you have a large radius, nothing is truly a curve in 3D design, and we'll talk about that more later. But if I do this and I move this and I zoom in, you can see that the curve is actually made up of steps. It's actually made up of 10 little tiny half millimeter steps, because a curve is an infinitely complex thing, Pi is an irrational number and computers don't like them. So everything in 3D design is going to be made in steps. All of your curves are going to have a number of faces or steps. So you can control the number of steps, how perfect that curve is, or how steppy that curve is. And you'll notice it's doing it on several different dimensions at the same time. So you can control how much it's made out of facets or how much it really is up to 20 steps, how much it really is like a curve. The problem with this is 3D printers take a lot of time. And when you add steps, you are adding exponentially to the complexity of a project. So if you add triple the number of steps, that is like adding 27 times the complexity, and the project will take approximately 27 times longer, which is why they just sort of stop you at 20, which is a reasonable number that most 3D printers can handle within a reasonable amount of time. But if you get beyond 20 faces or 20 steps, then it takes so long that you would ever get it done. So that's just a little aside. I'll be teaching you a little bit about under the hood. I think of this class a lot as being a class in making your car start and using the gas pedal and getting from place to place. But I know some people really like to learn how to get under the hood on things. So I'll be including that. I generally won't be like testing you on it or anything like that, but I will be including it. Okay, so I think that's it for this part. And then in our next playlist, I will talk about copying and pasting, and I'll show you some other shapes.